In the stillness of California's sun-drenched desert, an emergency shattered the quiet over the weekend when Elijah Blue Allman, the son of music legend Cher and the late Gregg Allman, was found unconscious and rushed to a nearby hospital following a suspected overdose. The incident unfolded in Joshua Tree, a retreat known for introspection and solitude, but this time it became the setting of a personal crisis with public implications. Elijah, 47, had reportedly been seeking recovery and distance from years of personal turmoil, including battles with addiction and mental health instability. The news sent an immediate shock through the entertainment world, not just because of his famous bloodline, but because of the haunting familiarity of this narrative, a child of fame caught in the merciless grip of substance abuse. Emergency responders acted swiftly, reviving Elijah and transporting him into intensive care, where, according to TMZ, he remains under 24-hour supervision. For Cher, a mother who has endured heartbreak and helplessness in her attempts to save her son, this episode reopens wounds long hidden behind red carpets and stage lights. Within hours, her fans and Elijah's own small but loyal following took to social media, expressing concern, support, and sorrow over the life-threatening ordeal. While many remembered Elijah as a quiet creative force from the early 2000s alt-rock scene, others couldn't help but see this as a painful echo of his father's own turbulent history. The parallels are gut-wrenching, two generations haunted by the same shadows. And yet, this overdose, this terrifying moment, might also become a new inflection point. Not just for Elijah, but for a wider audience still learning how to see addiction not as a scandal, but as a lifelong struggle that doesn't spare the famous. As he stabilizes and the story unfolds, the world is once again reminded that fame offers no immunity from pain, and sometimes the brightest legacies hide the darkest battles. But what makes Elijah's story especially poignant is the way he's hovered in the gray space between fame and anonymity for most of his life. Unlike his parents, whose faces defined musical eras, Elijah always moved in the margins, famous by name, but largely invisible by choice. His band Deadsy, though cult-beloved, never broke into mainstream consciousness, and Elijah seemed to retreat even further after that. His withdrawal from public life was not so much dramatic as it was quiet, slow, and heartbreaking. Those close to him describe a man torn between embracing his legacy and escaping it altogether. A man who, despite privilege, never found a steady ground. He lived in hotels, often alone, sometimes reappearing in New York or Los Angeles, only to vanish again. There were attempts at reconciliation with family, but they would unravel, sometimes due to his refusal of help, other times due to unspoken wounds too deep to name. The overdose, in this light, was not just a medical emergency. It was the climax of a slow unraveling that too many ignored for too long. It was the price of silence, of stigma, and of a culture that often watches suffering without truly seeing it. And now, as Elijah lies in recovery, the question hangs heavy in the air. Will this be the wake-up call that changes everything, or just another chapter in a story that keeps circling the same painful ground? What followed the initial emergency was a surge of emotional turbulence, not just within the Allman family, but also across a public who has watched Elijah's life unravel in fragments over the years. Though he was born into a lineage of musical greatness, his journey has been defined as much by inner battles as by creative brilliance. Friends close to the family report that this was not Elijah's first brush with danger, but rather the most critical of a long line of increasingly desperate moments. In recent months, he had reportedly cut off contact with much of his inner circle, choosing instead to isolate himself in the California desert in an effort to cleanse, both spiritually and physically. But the line between solitude and self-destruction is perilously thin. Cher, having tried multiple interventions over the years, including a failed conservatorship bid in 2023, was said to be devastated but unsurprised. Sources suggest she had been pleading with him to seek structured help, but Elijah's resistance had become as firm as his silence. Meanwhile, media speculation intensified, with tabloid outlets dredging up past incidents, Elijah disappearing on anniversaries, erratic sightings at luxury hotels, cryptic Instagram posts, and emotional rants and podcasts that hinted at deep psychological wounds. His estranged relationship with both his mother and his late father's musical legacy has long been fraught with identity conflict. Elijah often referred to himself as a ghost in two dynasties, unseen but expected to shine. This overdose, as tragic as it was, became a cruel culmination of everything he had fought against. The pressure of being someone he never wanted to be, and the pain of never quite becoming who he could have been. Doctors treating him revealed that while his condition is now stable, the extent of organ damage and long-term effects remain unknown. Still, the fact that he survived it all was a small miracle. Through anonymous statements, family insiders expressed a mix of relief and exasperation, hope that this terrifying episode might finally push Elijah toward consistent recovery, but also fear that it could be just another temporary pause in a long pattern of self-destruction. The public, meanwhile, began to split into two camps. Those extending empathy and those casting judgment, reigniting age-old debates about celebrity addiction and whether fame invites rescue or ruins it. As conflict brews under the surface of hospital reports and social media timelines, one thing becomes heartbreakingly clear. This wasn't just a relapse. It was a soul collapsing under the weight of its own name. Then, as the dust of speculation began to settle, the gravity of Elijah Blue Allman's collapse came fully into focus. Not as a fleeting headline, but as a moment of reckoning for everyone orbiting his life. With his body stabilized and his mind slowly resurfacing from the haze of Overdose, those closest to him initiated what may be the most urgent intervention yet. Cher reportedly canceled all upcoming appearances and flew directly to the medical facility where her son is being treated, determined to be present for every breath, every tremor of consciousness. Sources suggest that this time feels different. There is no more denial, no more tiptoeing around the pain. Even estranged family members, some long silent in the press, began to issue messages of cautious support. Meanwhile, hospital staff quietly implemented security protocols, knowing full well the media storm just outside their walls. Inside, Elijah's body was responding, slowly but steadily. Physicians noted signs of lucidity, flickers of awareness that hinted he may soon be strong enough to make decisions about his future. But it wasn't just the physical toll that needed healing. Specialists brought in trauma counselors, addiction experts, and spiritual advisors, hoping to craft a holistic path forward should Elijah agree. At the same time, Cher began exploring long-term inpatient options. Rehab facilities with not just medical care, but spiritual and psychological depth. Because for Elijah, this isn't just about detox. It's about digging up the roots of decades-old trauma, identity crises, and the complex inheritance of being born into fame without ever asking for it. And yet, as his condition stabilized, the public tone shifted, from panic to cautious hope. A growing chorus of fans, fellow musicians, and even mental health advocates began speaking up online, using Elijah's collapse as a sobering reminder of the battles we don't see. One fan tweeted, "If Elijah Blue can come back from this, maybe there's hope for the rest of us too." It's a fragile moment where possibility and fear coexist. But in that fragile space, something new can begin. A second chance. A real one. Maybe the first he's ever truly had. Ultimately, as Elijah Blue Allman continued to stabilize under round-the-clock medical care, the world watched not with scandalized curiosity, but with something more rare: compassion. With his mother Cher anchoring the family's presence at his bedside, the narrative began to shift from survival to salvation. While no official statement has been released regarding his discharge or future plans, insiders suggest there's a quiet consensus forming. Elijah is willing to accept help. And this time, it's not reactive or court-ordered. It's voluntary. Sources close to the Allman family reveal that a team is now coordinating a highly discreet transfer to a long-term, trauma-informed rehabilitation facility specializing in cases where fame and emotional fractures collide. This move, still tentative, signals a breakthrough not just in Elijah's willingness to live, but in his desire to heal. For Cher, it is both a relief and a weight she has carried for decades. A moment of maybe, laced with the fear of relapse but fueled by maternal resilience. And for the public, it's an invitation to reconsider how we view celebrity pain. Elijah Blue's overdose was not just another footnote in the long book of Hollywood dysfunction. It was a mirror held up to the generational toll of untreated wounds, the emptiness of inherited fame, and the quiet agony of those forced to live in a spotlight that never lets them grow in the dark. As fans flood social platforms with messages of love, forgiveness, and prayers for strength, a quieter dialogue is beginning to take shape. One that values vulnerability over image, humanity over headlines. Elijah's story may not yet have a happy ending, but it finally feels like it's reached a place where an ending isn't imminent. And a future, however fragile, is finally imaginable. In a culture built on spectacle, this isn't just recovery. It's resistance. It's a reclamation of self. And for Elijah Blue Allman, that may be the most powerful legacy he's ever had a chance to create.